Hello and welcome to my channel on human design. Today I want to look at the conditioning that 65% of us receive with the open ego, the open will, the open heart center. So I'm going to go into some of the issues there and some of the consequences of being born with an open ego, since that is the majority of us. And at the same time, I'm going to take us through to how can you work through that? What is the answer? What is some of the things to look for if you have an open ego? But first of all, we need to go into the conditioning itself. Those people that are born with an open will have usually a lower self-esteem than those that are born with a fixed will. This is not to say that the fixed wills have an easy time of it. They don't, but that's another story for another time. For those of you who have it open, you don't have the will power. It's a motor. It's a power that those that do can use, and they can use it for what they want. And when they do, it can be very impressive. Now, with an open will, you can compare yourself to them and you will not come out the winner. They will come out the winner. You will come out with an even lower self-esteem. Not a good idea to go competing with a fixed will. But you're going to receive the conditioning. You're going to receive the conditioning of I am less than. And the whole point of human design is to show you what you are and all the potential that's in you. You're not less than anyone. You should be able to look anyone in the eye, being you. You are different. This is a science of differentiation. It emphasizes the uniqueness of every person. So when you're working in the world where it's a material world and you have to live, you have to find a way to feed yourself and shelter yourself at the very least. There is this survival pressure for all of us in a material world. So it makes sense to, when you need money, to get a job and be employed, and get money so that you can live. But that's not the end of it. Because if you go along to a corporation and join a corporation, they will regard you as another widget. They will regard you as a component within their organization, which means that you're replaceable. And you're replaceable. And you can live life as a widget at a certain level, and you can obey, and you can fit in with the company themes, whatever that is. Remember, every big company, their main focus is going to be on making profit, and you're there to help them make profit. And if you do that, they will reward you and take you to another level. You have to climb the hierarchy. So we've got people that will behave and do the things that are expected of them while they're not really enjoying their lives, while the company culture of, who's above you and who's below you becomes an important part of that life. It's not a very fulfilling a life for many. It can be if you're fitting into the corporation, if you enjoy where they're going, if it's helping people, if you're doing good work and you're participating in that, then it's great. But you've got to be rewarded appropriately to the energy that you're putting out, to the guidance that you're putting out, to the innovation that you're putting out. They will accept a lower wage, a lower salary, because they don't think they're good enough, because they don't really believe that they're worth it. So they keep trying to prove their worth, and they will prove their worth in work, and they'll prove their worth in love, and they will prove their worth in the way that they think they can. And often that leads to measuring one's worth according to how much money one has or what one has in terms of material, which isn't a good measure. It's not a good measure for the quality of life. It's not a good measure for the happiness. It's not a good measure for the serenity that you can be regarding yourself with more respect. So a lot of people with open wills do not respect themselves, and they don't respect those people that are above them in the chain either. They have to put up with a lot. And when they're advanced in terms of taking to the next level in the company, there's a lot of abusive use of power, because now they've got the power and they are above someone else. And again, if they don't know their own worth, they're not going to handle that power in a fair way. They're not going to handle that power well at all. And that's happened in the world. We can see the rise of the technocrats, you know, those that have the bureaucratic established system where everyone's going to go, yes, sir, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. I want to keep my job. I want to be a good widget for you. And the companies are taking the world in a direction that is based on their own success, not the success of people. An open will can easily lead into a life of lack and suffering that becomes the norm, and all the frustration and unhappiness that comes with it. So what can you do about it? Well, you've got to regard yourself with the respect that you deserve, because we all deserve respect. Why? Because we're all unique. We all have qualities that others don't have, and the combination of qualities. So it really begins when we're very young in life, quite often. In my own case, I didn't know what I was worth. You know, I still don't know what I'm worth in terms of money. I get the fixed wills to put a price on what I offer because they're better at it than I am. It's difficult as an open will to know what your value is in a material way. But the start of this is to recognize that you have value in the first place. And in my case, it was the recognition from my English teachers that recognized I had an ability to write and to use words in a way that was both eloquent and appropriate. And it was on that recognition that I thought, well, at least I'm good at this. You know, I may not be good at physics or, you know, deep mathematics, but at least I'm good at this. And I built on that. I'm a manifesting generator. When you find recognition from the outside and you recognize that their recognition is based on the truth of who you are, changes everything, changes everything. That doesn't mean, you know, I suddenly became a great writer and that was my career. It's not as simple as that. But it did give me enough self-respect that I was good at something that enabled me to build upon that and extend my education into finding out more about how meaning and words are used, to become more eloquent, to become more skilled through my training, through my education. But that doesn't necessarily bring a living. I mean, I studied philosophy pure philosophy for 3 years. You know, there aren't a lot of jobs in the job centers saying, we need another philosopher. I don't think so. But it gave me the self-confidence to know that I was good at something. To make a living when I was in my 20s, you know, it became a matter of I had to become or play the game of being a widget in a company that had resources that could pay me so I could live. But I never identified with being a widget. You know, I was happy to be paid what I was paid for the work that I did. And I helped to make the companies richer. I increased their profits by my efforts, but it was not fulfilling for me. And I knew that. You know, I hadn't responded to being in another company, building profits for that company as the way of my life, you know, especially if it was a company that was very, that provided a very mundane service. It was my own chart, my own life forces that put me into a direction that was really an area where I could succeed with what I had learned, with what my abilities were. And so my own energy, my mutative energy that wanted me to expand in the experience of life, took me into different experiences, took me into experiences that were both empowering and expanding for me, and gave me a background of knowing how that happens and what's involved in that. It became through that I established my own company, not by following someone else's rules, not by fitting into a milieu that I absolutely hated. You know, I'm not someone that fits in easily. I'm strongly individual. I'm very stubborn. You know, I have certain qualities that have been very useful to me, but not something that everyone has and not something that everyone could tolerate. When you think about self-value and you think about the material world, think about what really works. What really works is if there is an offer of some sort that gives great value at a decent price, then a lot more people are going to go into that. There's an increase in the flow that comes with that. But if it's too cheap, it's not going to work. It's the beginning of a process of opening people up to want more of what you can offer, also that needs to be high value. And that comes from who you are. It doesn't come from what you think you can be. Self-value comes from being yourself and giving value through your natural, in terms of me, a response. You know, success for a generator comes through their response to what they put out. And if that is valued by the people that they're putting it out to, then they are naturally rewarded by it. No need to fit into someone else's system. No need to sell yourself short. That is not the way. You know, an open will can give everything they've got, you know, just for some appreciation, just for someone to say, yeah, I thank you for that. You know, you gave me great value in that, but you're left with nothing. You're here to build something if you're a generator. You're here to guide people if you're a projector. And what have you got in you that enables you to do that really well? You will have many things you can draw on because you know your design. Look closer. What are you available for as a generator? What have you got power for that you can put out? And what are you going to build with that? Who do you need to bring in to help guide you to make it more successful in the areas that you don't have? It's not about a lack of, you know, I can't do that because I don't have that. It's a matter of, well, I've got this. Now, if I put myself with this person, hey, we can do this together. You know, you can build your own team, a team and a company in a business based on who you are as a fundamental key. You know what you can do, you know what you can't do. You know, you discover other things you can do through the doing of what you can do. It all kind of feeds in on itself. So self-esteem will rise in you. You know, your self-confidence in doing something that you can do in different ways again and again. It's something that's reliable in you. This is what human design teaches. What is reliable in you? Look there. And other people that will recognize you. Like my English teacher recognized me. He recognized what I had in me. He didn't give me the blah, blah of, you know, well done and not being specific. He goes, I really like the way you did this and that. He pointed out to me what I could do, what I was good at doing. But in a world where people don't know who they are and the teachers don't know who the students are, and if they're not looking for that, then this is what we get, a world of people that don't think they're good enough, trying to fit into an ongoing homogenized stream of profit-motivated agendas. It does not end well, and it does not go well, and it does not lead in a good direction. And personally, I want no part of it. You know, happily, there are many examples out there of people who also don't want to fit into the corporate way of doing things, but they have recognized something in them, perhaps by someone pointing it out to them, that they're really good at this. You know, make that your strength, what you've actually got in you consistently. You know, there are 1858s out there, you know, the channel of judgment. They have this critical eye. They can see what's wrong in the pattern. You know, if they're invited to, they'll give you good information. They'll give you good feedback. If they're not invited, they'll be criticized for them criticizing you. They're trying to help, but it doesn't come out like that. But in the right place, recognized in the right way. As an example, when I was running a magazine, I wanted the critical ones. I only hired proofreaders that had the 18 because they could see the faults straight away. It jumped out of the page at them. And I had 5 of them, so they could disagree with each other and decide which was really the correct one for this particular context. And they'd have to discuss it. But they were all into trying to make it as good as it could get. And I really appreciated them, and I needed them, and I don't have it in me. That's what works. to have what you have in you recognized, for you to then recognize it in yourself. And upon that, your self-esteem will grow. And you won't have to respect the higher ups who you really don't respect anywhere. And you won't have to play the game. You play your own game. You play your own game based on what you have in you. But it has to be recognized, and it has to be recognized by you. And then you have nothing to prove. You don't have to prove you're better than someone else. You're naturally able to do certain things, and they're naturally able to do certain things. And together something wonderful can be made. Something innovative can come out into the world, something that can benefit the world, that will also make you feel good, that you're helping to make the world a better place. To be part of that. But employers may not be looking for that. They're looking for cogs. They're looking for widgets. They're looking for people to do a certain job. And trying to fit a round peg into a square hole leads to a lot of resistance and suffering and entrapment and stuckness and an increased lower self-esteem, especially if the company that you're part of is doing all kinds of hideous things out there. But you've got to get your paycheck, or you've got to look deeply into yourself and find another way. When we see our human design chart, we see a chart full of potential, but that potential is very often unlived, and time goes by, and suddenly people find themselves incapable of doing the things they could have done earlier because they never gave themselves a chance. They never held themselves in the regard that was appropriate to what they have in them. And as a result, they became a slave. And after you've been a slave decade after decade, it is very difficult to get out of that. I don't want slaves. Ra didn't want slaves. He wanted to set the slaves free. It's through what you have in you that this world becomes a better place to live. It's through you honoring yourself, not overblown with an open ego that's overblown with a pumped up ego from a fixed one, but what's really real in you, what's really true in you, what you really have in you. And everybody has something wonderful to share that others do not have, whether by themselves or in combinations with others. When we come together in the aura, yes, there can be some triggering, absolutely, but there can also be some harmonics, and there can also be things that really boost the whole thing for both people or the team, depending on who you're working with. It can be a wonderful life. It can be a satisfying life. It can be a rewarding life. And you can be justly rewarded materially as a result of the success of that. We have to break out of the slave mentality. And there's very little out there that's going to help us. We start with who we are. We look into who we are. We begin to understand what we've got and test it by all means. So I encourage everyone to test the human design knowledge, and then you'll see for yourself that, yes, indeed, I do have this attribute consistently. I do have this life force. I do have this energy for this. I do have this perspective that no one else has. You know, I do have this ability to be with people and work with people in a harmonious way. You know, I'm good at team building, or I'm good at this, or I'm good at that. You find your way. Sure, use corporations initially to find out other things about yourself, but don't stay stuck in them if you're not satisfied. Don't stay at a place where you are regarding yourself as less than. It's very important that you understand life force moves upward. It's about living your life in the world, finding a way to live your life in the world, not to comply to what is demanded from widgets. You're not replaceable. You're unique. And it is from there that you build. It is from there that the life comes. And then the open ego become something in the past. The making decisions on the open ego is no longer controlling you. Resistance comes when you are fully conditioned and you're pushing against it. Freedom comes when the conditioning drops away. if you're fulfilled in your life as yourself, the open ego isn't this major conditioner anymore. It's something that you don't have, and it's not relevant anymore that you have it, because you're happy in your life and you're growing in your life and you have harmonious relationships with those people around you because of that. It's part of who you are. It's part of what we all have to learn. And it is a difficult lesson. I won't minimize the conditioning of the open ego. It's a big conditioner. It affects the lives of many people in the worst possible ways. But you can break out of it. And you break out of it by seeing who you are. And for those people, you know, those friends that you have around you, when you see something that they're really good at, you know, to actually point that out to them. You know, thanks, I couldn't do that. That's brilliant. Thank you. Oh, it's all right, they'll say. It's all right. No, you really deserve my thanks. I couldn't have done it without you. Let them take that in deeply. Let them ruminate upon that. Let them discover for themselves their own value through the praise that you give that is rightly attributed, not made up to be polite, that is rightly and specifically attributed, so they can recognize it specifically in them. That's the way to make a better world. That's the way to have a life that's worth living. So don't die with the potential of the chart as something unlived. Find out what it is. Hold yourself in high regard with what you have in you and live that. That's the way to do it. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And I will be back again very soon with something completely different. Bye for now.